This is a SnapEd New York video presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Beckman and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SnapEd New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today I'm going to be making garden sloppy joes. This recipe is a great example of how you can add vegetables to a recipe that you might already make. We'll be posting the link to the recipe below, and the recipe can also be found on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. This recipe makes 12 servings, but you can easily cut the recipe in half, and that's what I'm going to be showing you here. You can also make the whole recipe and freeze half of it to use later. It's a great recipe to use up any vegetables that you have left over in your refrigerator. In this recipe, we'll be adding some extra vegetables to these sloppy joes. You can do this with any recipe that you already make. So if you have a favorite casserole recipe that calls for broccoli or carrots or peas, if the recipe calls for 1 cup, you can add 1.5 cups or 2 cups of vegetables without altering the recipe too much. It's an easy way to get more vegetables into your diet. You can usually do the same thing with soup recipes, just load up on the veggies. Now before I start cooking, let's look at the My Plate graphic. This recipe covers the protein section. There will be some vegetables in the recipe, but it's mainly a source of protein. Including enough protein in our diets can help bolster our immune system, repair damage, and maintain all of the cells in our bodies. You can vary your protein routine by including animal-based forms of protein, like the ground turkey that I'm going to be using in this recipe, and plant-based proteins like nuts, seeds, beans, and legumes. Remember that everything that you eat and drink over time matters. Make every bite count by finding your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. The right mix can help you be healthier now and in the future. So before we get into this recipe, last month I made a roasted chicken and veggies. If you didn't get a chance to see that video, you can view it on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page or the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel. So let's get into making these garden sloppy joes. Remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer before you start cooking. Like I mentioned previously, the recipe makes 12 servings. Each serving contains 140 calories, 2.5 grams of fat, 3 grams of fiber, and 10 grams of protein. So let's look at the ingredients for the recipe. The recipe calls for 1 onion chopped, which I have right here. I have 1 carrot chopped, or you can have a shredded carrot, that works too. I have 1 green bell pepper, and I'm going to chop that up in just a minute. You need 1 pound of lean ground meat. I'm going to use ground turkey, but you can also use lean ground beef if you want to. I have 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, which is right here. I have a 15-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Look for the low sodium or no sodium added options. I'm actually going to also add some paste, tomato paste, to thicken up the sauce a little bit more. You want to lower sodium in your diet because it's good for heart health, as sodium can make high blood pressure worse, so I often look for ways to reduce my sodium intake wherever I can. You also need 1 8-ounce can of mushrooms, or you can use a half a pound of chopped fresh mushrooms. That's what I have right here, but fresh, canned, frozen, dried, all of those work, so you can use any of those. You need a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. And I actually made my own barbecue sauce because it's mostly just ketchup, mustard, and Worcestershire sauce with some seasoning. So it's pretty easy to make. There's some good recipes online, or you can use some that you purchase in a bottle, whatever you like. And you also will need 6 whole wheat buns. Each serving uses 1/2 of a bun. Now, I have a saucepan here, and the first thing that we're going to do is saute the vegetables and the meat together. You can spray your pan with nonstick spray if you want to, but I'm just going to add everything here without any oil. So first, I am going to add the onions. And they're going to start to sizzle already. That's really good. And then next, I'm going to add in the carrots. And that's what I like about this recipe. We're going to add some vegetables that I wouldn't normally add to sloppy joes, but I think it makes it a little more interesting. And last, we're going to add the ground turkey. All right, so let's put that in there. And we're going to have to let that cook for a little while. You're going to want to keep stirring it every once in a while it's cooking, but that's going to take a few minutes. So we'll just leave that there for now. Okay. So after you let that sit for probably 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to chop up the green bell pepper while you're waiting for that to happen. So let me do that now. First, I'm going to cut off the top, and then I'm going to remove the inside of the pepper. Be careful, make sure that your fingers are not in the way. Get the core out, and make sure that you remove all of the seeds. Got to get the little seeds out of there. All right, that works pretty well. And then I usually like to just chop it up, cut it in half, and then make some strips for myself. So again, make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. And you can make the pieces as big or as small as you like, whatever is the way that you like to make it, because sometimes people like bigger pieces of vegetables, sometimes people like smaller pieces of vegetables. I like mine a little bit larger, so I'm going to chop those up pretty big. There we go. We'll see if we can get some of these pieces all together. Get some of that chopped up. That's looking pretty good. And you can use green peppers, you could use red peppers, you could use the orange ones or the yellow ones, whatever makes you happy. I really think that this recipe would be great with some zucchini in it. That would make it nice and thick. So if you have some leftover zucchini, if you have some leftover broccoli, you probably, if you chop it up fine enough, you can put it into this sauce, and you might not even notice that it's in there. And it is really a great way to get rid of some of those vegetables that are in your refrigerator that maybe they're a little softer than you would like. Maybe you don't want to put them into your salad, but you really don't want to waste them and you want to use them up. So I always like using peppers and onions that way. You can get that, make sure that all of those things get incorporated in there. All right, so we're going to mix that up a little bit more. I'm going to turn up my heat a little more. All right, so that's going to have to keep cooking for a little bit. Turn that heat up. Okay, so after that mixture has been cooking for a little while, then you're going to add some of the other ingredients. Now let's do the tomato sauce first. That is here. All right. And then we're going to do the crushed tomatoes right here. And this is what makes most of your sauce. There we go. Now it's going to start looking a little bit more like sloppy joes. And like I said, I'm going to add some tomato paste. Recipe doesn't call for that, but I'm using a low sodium tomato paste. This is probably about 3 ounces or about a half a can of tomato paste. And that's going to help thicken that whole mixture up a little bit. All right. Now we're going to add the barbecue sauce. I'm very proud of myself for making my own barbecue sauce. That adds a little bit more spiciness to it. And I like to make my own barbecue sauce because some of the commercially made ones I find a little bit too sweet. So I did add a little bit of brown sugar to that, but not too much, just a little bit. And then we're going to add, lastly, our mushrooms. So let's put those in there. And those mushrooms are also going to add a little bit of texture to this sloppy joe mixture. Mushrooms are really a great way to sort of spread your dollars and help to stretch some of the meat that you're adding to your recipes. It gives it kind of that meat-like texture without the cost. So there's that. The last thing I'm going to add is I'm going to put in some of the spices. So like I said, I have a teaspoon of the chili powder. Again, this wasn't called for in the recipe, but I feel like it needs a little bit of something. Teaspoon of cumin. I'm going to add that in. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of garlic powder. All right. So let's mix all of that up. And obviously, this is going to take a little while for this to cook. So once that is all incorporated, you can probably let that come to a boil. So that's going to take a few minutes. And once it comes to a boil, you can turn it down and then you're going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's thick. It might take a little bit longer than that. Just depends on how hot your burner is. Let me show you what the sloppy joes look like once they're cooked. So let me get this out of the way. And then I am going to turn back here and get the sloppy joes. So this is what they look like. This is actually 2 servings, but that's about it. This meal can be made in about 30 minutes total, so it's a great choice for a busy weeknight. You can also make the recipe in the crock pot. Just cook your ground meat prior to adding it to the pot, and then add all of your vegetables, all the wet ingredients, all of your spices, and cook on low for about 4 hours or high for about 2 hours. Now, I hope this recipe gave you some more ideas on how to incorporate more lean protein into your diet. Join me next month in February when I'll be making a rice bowl breakfast with fruit and nuts. I'll be back with another edition of What's Cooking with NYSOFA on Friday, February 24th at 12:30 p.m. on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page and the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel, where you can find out more ways to save time, save money, and eat healthy. This presentation was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Stay safe, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material was funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.